So my plan is one day to get a opening. I like the opening as it stands. By the way, this is a cold opening. Like this is the beginning of the podcast. And I know that's going to come with time, but I just wanted to put that out there that if you are the first listeners, you're listening to this, you're getting ready to see something built up into like from humble beginnings to something magnificent because that's the energy I'm walking into 2020 with. We are so close, y'all. As of me recording, this is December 1st, so this is the day before y'all actually will hear or get this episode. And I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving because I know I did. Hope everybody stuffed their face. My homegirl, the previous or guest, last week's guest, the Courtney Williams, she calls it Family Day, which I actually love. I really love that. Um, Family Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, celebrating, commemorating them, as well as spending time with family. Whatever you were doing, whatever you call it, I hope it was a good one. Just to give you guys a little bit of what I was doing for the weekend, I actually went to a restaurant in Bundang called La, oh Lapine. Lapine. La, yeah, it's like how should I put it? It's like a New Orleans style restaurant, and it was excellent. Like when I say the food was banging, y'all, it was banging. I don't know where anywhere one else, any foreigners that went to a Friendsgiving or Thanksgiving at any other restaurant in Seoul. I don't know what y'all were doing, but y'all really missed out if you were not in this place because the owner, she's Korean American and she lived in New Orleans for 30 years and basically moved back to Seoul with her husband. They quit their jobs and they opened up this restaurant. Super nice. She's so sweet. And the food was like legit. Even just thinking about it right now, I'm like, oh my God. It was so damn good. I'm talking greens, sweet potato casserole, a legitimate mac and cheese. Like I'm talking about that joint was cheesy, roast turkey, proper turkey, cranberry sauce, gravy, and like cornbread, buttermilk biscuits. Sorry, I'm just like standing for this meal, even though it's like been over, but I'm like, and I also cooked for myself because, I want to have something, leftovers. Leftovers are such a treat. So, yeah, I had a great, enjoyable Thanksgiving. Y'all know what it is. It is the Nomad Peeps Podcast, the podcast for born wanderers and rule breakers. This week, we're talking about work culture. That means everything that has to do with the 9 to 5, the 40-day work week. How do people around the world get down with this schedule? How does it vary between different countries? And what role does it play in a capitalist society, the 40-day work week? And most importantly, is it possible to break out of this? So for anyone living in the U.S., I know that this weekend was Thanksgiving weekend. So some of y'all maybe had the day off. Some of you maybe were able to take like a little 4-day weekend. But the rest of us, especially other Americans living abroad, like, for example, myself in Korea, it was just another day. And so I thought that this episode is fitting right after Thanksgiving because this is holiday time. People are coming up on Christmas, having their time off. Kids are going to be off from school. People are going to be taking some holiday vacations and whatnot. And that started me thinking about, work culture and how has the system that we live in, how has that come to be? So I'm going to tell y'all a brief history. I'm not trying to get in depth with it, too in depth, but I'm going to tell you a brief history about my work experience as a chef. So my first experience in the kitchen, I was 16. I worked at a place. If you live in Pennsylvania or Delaware, there's a chain called Grotto's Pizza. This was my very first job, first experience working. 16, just kind of like a little making pizzas and stuff like that. And this was like my first job because I knew I wanted to go to culinary school and blah, blah, blah. But I learned from a very early age just being in a kitchen, a very male-dominated space. And, when you talk about being in a environment with where there's men, and when it comes to work, there's this energy that's kind of like, you got to do it, do the work, get it done. Is no nonsense, no games, which is false. There's plenty of games going on in the kitchen, but like, we're here to work. You get the work done, you collect your check, but there's also a kind of and this is unique to working in the hospitality field, specifically the kitchen. And I'm sure there's this type of uh, energy within other, industries or careers. But specifically speaking about working in the kitchen, it's almost like this militaristic type of view of like, we're all in this, and it's like war. I don't know how else to describe it. This mentality of like work is very like war. We every night it's a battle against the clock, getting things done, this, that. So this was kind of like my entry point into working. So now combine this with a work ethic, which I feel like I definitely, some professionalism, being professional, and having a strong work ethic was something that was pegged into me from a very young age, because even before I started working in kitchens, I had little jobs, babysitting, walking dogs, because from a very young age, I had an understanding about making money, and how if you work, basically learning that time is a commodity. I think I had my first lesson of that. My mom used to go to this little flea market when we were living in Philadelphia. It was like in this like I want to say it was like a theology college or something like that. And they had this massive field, and they would open it up to different people in the neighborhood come set up. The whole field was covered with people. Like, it's like a little flea market selling stuff. And my mom used to make like chocolate chip cookies with me and lemonade, and would sell it for like 50 cents a little cup. And I remember that day I had this cute like little glitter covered shoebox that I was collecting my coins, and I want to say I was like maybe 5 or 6, but I have a clear memory of all of those shiny, beautiful uh, George Washingtons and Eagles staring back up at me in that box. And I want to say at the time I might have made like $20, and $20 of quarters that's what I had. And I just distinctly remember like, ooh, I like this. I like the rattle in this box. I like these coins that I got. And my concept of what money was at that time was probably, minimal, to say the least. But I knew it was something I liked, that I made something, I did something, put it out there, and I got this back for it. So, and then with that, I could get other more awesome things. So, like, this hit me. I had this understanding from a very young age. So when it came to working, I want to say like about my junior year, one of my home ec teachers was in home ec. For anyone that doesn't know, home economics, it's like a cooking class in school, learning stuff like that. And I remember my teacher at the time had recommended the Culinary Institute of America, which is where I would later attend college. But at the time, I was like, well, shoot, if I have to make money, I need to go to university. It should probably be for something that I love to do. And a lot of people don't even clock on to that, trying to make that, connection of maybe I should do what I love and purpose. But we're going to come back to that at a later date in the show. So right now, so I ended up getting into working in the kitchens, going from kitchen to kitchen, and they're kind of, I I want to say I adapted. I adapted that idea of, working hard is very noble. Working without complaining, there's a nobility in being able to do that. You stand above the rest. You're not weak. Not taking any days off, no days off. That's something to be proud of. And so I expected going into new kitchens and expecting abuse. And I don't mean like a physical abuse, but just like the nature of the job, the long hours, the elements, dealing with fire, heat, burns, cuts, also being able to, have the stamina with withstanding all of these things and doing it without any complaint. was something that I was aspiring to. And I was like, this is going to make me a better person. This is going to make me a better chef. It's kind of like trial by fire. You come out at the end of this stronger than you did when you came in. And I can say that working in the culinary industry, that there was some truth to that. I did, because it's like, it's about being disciplined, a lot of it. So on one hand, and I'm just speaking from the industry that I spent most of my at this point most of my life working in, and have an understanding. And I did that did happen to me, because I was a very shy child. I was very kind of soft spoken, and anybody that's ever worked in a kitchen or seen any type of movie or shit, watch Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay, then this is the truth. This is kind of the truth. You see how it is. It's rough. It ain't easy. It's not for everyone. But for me to have done that and come out at the end, I felt like, ooh, there's some truth. And then I adapted that mentality too. So anybody else that came after me, as far as new people and even talking to people about my job, it's like, yeah, I worked on a cruise ship. I worked every day for 6 months straight. And a lot of people, when I tell them that, and this is facts, I did when I was working for Silver Sea Cruise Line, the nature of a contract of working on a cruise ship, if you're like a chef or staff, is that you essentially you get all your you get all your weekends at the end of your contract, which is your vacation. So you might be on a ship for 4, 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months for like my Filipino peeps and Indian peeps. They do longer contracts, and you were working every single day, anywhere between 14 to, well, six, I'm not supposed to say this, but basically, let's be real, 14 to 16 hours for some people. And they do it. You get it done. You don't complain. And for a while, I felt proud telling people that, because I used to get off on like seeing people like, oh my God, like you worked that? Oh, I can't believe you did that. Like, oh man, it couldn't be me. Because then I was like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, it couldn't be you because you can't do it. This used to be my mentality. I kind of hate, because now I look back at it and I realize how, like, I don't want to say problematic it was, but I realize how, like, when I look at the bigger picture of the world and my purpose, like, it's like, sis, like, you a little bit on your high horse right now. So for me, working weekends, that was a norm. I usually had my days off on Monday or Tuesday, which a lot of people who work in hospitality, that's kind of like they have some type of schedule like this. And so now let's fast forward to 2 years ago. Let's say 2 years ago. So the 3 years that I lived in Melbourne, I was working in a restaurant, in various different restaurants, but for the most part, again, I had Monday, I mean, no, excuse me, I would have like a Tuesday, Wednesday off. And for a while, I didn't mind this. Like this whole everything I was telling you, this whole mentality that I had and had adapted of working, and my views on working, I didn't really run into any problems. And I want to say until in the last 3 years, and this happened with or coincided with my move to Australia. The first year I moved there, in Melbourne, was great because I was making great money. Because chefs starting off, your rates usually, this is, you can start making 20 20 Australian, anywhere between 20 to 22 Australian dollars an hour, which maybe works out. I don't know what the recent conversion rate, but at the time, I want to say that's like about 18 US dollars an hour, which is, I had never made this money before, especially being like especially doing it hourly, having an hourly wage. So this was great. I was enjoying that money, so I was happy to work. And it wasn't until my working holiday visa ended, and I switched to a temporary work visa, which is like your sponsored visa. So I was being sponsored by a company, and now I had salary, which, most people know when you're working on salary, it's set. So it really doesn't matter your hours that you work. So overtime, all that stuff is not necessarily considered. Um, so yeah, that's when things started to change. And it wasn't that I wasn't happy with doing the work anymore, but I wasn't necessarily doing what I wanted to do. And I felt like, as far as, you know, my purpose was starting to be something. So that was something that was bothering me. Like, I was feeling like, what am I doing? What am I actually bringing to the table besides just going to work and making some money and then, spending it? I was like, I want to be doing more. And so that's when things started to change as far as me viewing how I look at work and where my time is going, what my time is being put to. And that's when I started my YouTube journey as far as starting my channel. And during that process, I started realizing, well, there's all these other things I'm interested in doing and all these other creative things that I want to do. And I love cooking, but I actually don't want to like work in these establishments anymore. And it was a thing where I kept looking for my perfect kitchen. And when I say perfect kitchen, I mean like, looking for the place where I can learn and really be hands on, like in the biggest way possible, and like we're doing exciting things. And I also kind of wanted that balance of making money, but I was starting to realize that was something, finding all of those I guess, I wanted to have all those boxes ticked, and I was having a hard time finding everything I wanted in one specific place. And I was coming to the realization that, sis, you're gonna have to do this on your own. You're not gonna find your perfect kitchen until you make it. And so that's when things started to kind of like, the dissatisfaction started creeping in with the job and the hours. And even with the last place that I worked in Melbourne, it's a place called the European, very well known Melbourne dining establishment. They have various different restaurants within the group. And the schedule wasn't bad. At first, I didn't think it was bad because they did something a little bit different, especially for the hospitality industry. And this is something that is now, I know a lot of like, especially high-end restaurants are starting to implement, which is a 4-day work week. So how this works is that you essentially are doing, let's see, you're doing 3 doubles a week. So the hours you would normally work across a 5-day period is now crunched into 4. But that leaves you with having 3 days off. So it was a situation where I'd have like I would have, Monday, Tuesday off. Wednesday, Thursday, I'd work a double. So that means I would come in around, like, we didn't have to start till 9. This is what they told us. But the reality is when you have a shit ton of stuff to do, you got to get it done. You're going to get in there early. And then I remember a lot of my chefs saying it's about how you balance your time and how you work. But for me, I just felt I would come in at 7 because it was like just trying to get like all the things done, get ahead of stuff, ahead of people, get ahead of the list, getting all your ingredients and pots and pans you need before others come in and take it, because then you gotta wait. It was like this type of situation. So I would start at 7. We'd work all the way up until lunch. You have like a 20 minute like break for lunch, get something to, well, I say lunch break, but essentially go to the bathroom, have a cigarette if you smoked, and get something down your gullet just to sustain you. And then you get ready for the dinner service. And then you weren't really finishing until, if it was like not a crazy night, you'd be lucky to finish around like, 10:30 sometimes. But with, commuting, I wasn't getting home. So I was coming in at 7. I really wasn't getting home until closer to like 11. If you're having drinks with people, most people weren't, at least especially if you had a double the next day. This is kind of how it went. And so then I would have that on Wednesday and Thursday. Friday, I'd have Friday off. So that was my day 3. Saturday was kind of like a single shift day. So usually you just had to come in after lunch, around when lunch was ending for the dinner service. And then Sunday I had a double, which was brunch. So that was so rough. I used to really hate it. So this is kind of like my schedule. And at first I was like, oh, this ain't bad. This is not bad at all. But then it started getting to me because I wasn't really enjoying the work anymore. And I was just like feeling unfulfilled and just realizing like, what am I doing? Am I just staying in Australia for a visa, or am I actually trying to build a life here, or what? So this is what led me to realizing I got to make a change, and that this particular work environment, and just the work environment, is not even about going to a new restaurant. I just needed a break from this specific culture, this specific industry. And I feel like a lot of people are becoming, and not just within the hospitality industry, a lot of people are becoming jaded with the current work culture, this whole 40-hour work week, 5 days a week, only having 2 days to yourself every week. A lot of people are becoming dissatisfied. This is the main reason why like becoming a digital nomad, and this is big. It's growing. I was looking at some. I think it was like a statistic that was talking about like the countries that are growing as far as expat numbers. I believe it's like Taiwan and Vietnam are like in the top two places that people are moving to, just because of having a work life balance and just better quality of life, whether like people are just, people are looking for something else. So what I want to do is, let's get into talking about where did the 40-hour, why do we work 5 days a week and have 2 days off? And I'm speaking for majority of, like, I guess, Western countries. So anyone who works in like Europe or Australia or Canada, America, actually, and even some places, other places. And when I say the West, I'm specifically talking about these countries, which kind of led the way for us to have this idea of the 40-day work week. So let's take a little break and let's get into that. Like, where the hell did the 40-day work week come from? My bad, y'all. Y'all gonna have to forgive me because I know I just said 40-day work week. I really meant the 40-hour work week, because you can't have a 40-day work week, Lisa. That makes no sense. Um, so yeah, let's go over really quick before we get into this working time. Let's see what are the working times based on different countries. Let's see what other countries are doing. So let's start off in good old jolly Europe. Everybody knows that Europeans, excuse me, not Europe, but Europeans enjoy very nice holiday time. They get about 4 to 6 weeks of holiday time as the standard. France, they have their average is a 35 work hour week, and this is by law. Okay, so a lot of this, everything that we're talking about, came through legislation. South Korea, my current home, they introduced the 40-hour 5-day working week in 2004, but this is with companies with over 1,000 employees. And this moved to being a nationwide thing in 2011. And they also upped their public holidays to 16 days. So that's even more than the US. So they have 16 public holidays, in addition to their vacation time, which I believe Koreans have the same amount of vacation time, standard vacation time, which is about 2 weeks. Again, I think this varies between different companies, because Koreans work, like, it's a big work culture here. They even call it bali bali, which is like means hurry in Korean. It means hurry. It means like fast. Like, it's a quick culture. It's go 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 go. But this is changing, because I feel like even with them, quality of life is becoming more important. I'm getting all out of order. I know I was talking about Europe and I mentioned South Korea, but to go back to Europe, Scandinavia, they get 25 days off. That's 5 weeks every year. And this is the other thing. This is the most interesting thing, because everyone's like, oh my God, Scandinavia seems like such a wonderful place to live. They pay high taxes, but they enjoy such a lovely quality of life, a bit of balance. I can't speak to this for, from experience. These are things that I've heard, but yes, they do have 25 days off. And this is the cool thing. If you're from, this is Scandinavia, if you are on vacation and say something happens, you get sick, unfortunately, like, you have to go into the hospital or something happens, if you get a note from the doctor or whatever place, I guess, in whatever country that you're visiting, if you bring that note back with you, that actually counts as a sick day, and they will give you that time back to add to your vacation. I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, who else? Spain. Now, Spain, they work 40 hours a week. They do get 21 days for vacation. And the thing is, a lot of people, they're known for the siesta, basically, that time during the day where everyone just like shops close, people leave work, they go to eat. But a lot of people don't realize that that's actually not everyone's going home to sleep. It's their midday meal. So the midday meal is the biggest meal of the day for a lot of Spanish people. So what they do is they might go, it's really 1 to 2 hours. I think a lot of people think that everybody's like going and kicking it for 3 hours. I don't think that's really the case. It's more like 1 to 2 hours where you take time to go home and you eat, because that's the biggest meal of the day. And then they come back and, continue to get on with their day. Now, to just go over some other countries, we have Australia, my second home. Surprisingly, people wouldn't think this, but Australians do work a lot. And I can attest to that. So they work a lot and they do a lot of overtime. So there's a statistic here. It says in 2010, excuse me, not 2010. Actually, no, sorry, 2010, my bad. It says 5 million of Australia's 7.7 million full-time workers put in more than 40 hours. So that means a lot of people, the majority of the workforce is doing 40 hours. But this is because in Australia, this is really specifically speaking to certain industries, which include mining, construction, agriculture, tourism, and transport. So these are the jobs where most people are working lots of overtime. They're working beyond that 40 hours a week, but they're also getting paid to do it well, because a lot of people don't know this, but labor jobs, if you do any type of job that involves labor, those are extremely well paid jobs. So for example, like, a construction worker, when you think of a construction worker, like especially in the US, what do you think about? You might think about a middle-aged man. Maybe they don't have the best, they're not in the best shape, bellies, maybe some little beer guts, balding a bit. I'm definitely stereotyping and possibly exaggerating, but not really. But like, y'all know what a construction worker looks like. Like, if you've ever seen a construction worker, it's not GQ status when you're looking at these guys. I'm just being realistic. However, in Australia, this is like the total opposite. A lot of tradies, that's what they call them, tradesmen, a lot of tradies. So anybody that's working in mining, construction work, plumbers, electricians, they're young. They go to the gym, they're tatted up. They wear like short shorts with like Tim boots, like construction boots. Um, I'm just talking from experience of seeing them. They're very well paid, good looking guys, I have to say. Very young, because it's like an easy job. You know, you don't have to, in Australia, you don't have to go to college to live a very good life. Like, you can easily pick up a trade and live well to do shit, probably better than like, me. I know some people who working construction jobs and have a nice ass house. I'm talking about beautiful house, going on really nice vacations and stuff like that, living well, comfortable. So yeah, that's kind of like, I'm kind of getting off tangent, but basically in Australia they work a lot. That's their average. In Mexico has a 48-hour mandate, but this is hardly enforced because of various law loopholes and I think issues with like labor unions. Who else do we have here? Vietnam, another special plate that has a special place in my heart. The typical work hours are from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., which I thought was a really lovely time. They take 1 hour for lunch. They have a right to one free day a week, actually, plus 12 days vacation a year. So, that's like what, almost about, it's a little under 2 weeks, but, I still think that's pretty good. Um, by law, the maximum amount of hours you can work is 47 hours. So again, we're kind of like in this 40 40-hour realm between the averages. It seems like a lot of the average in like most in 2019 for most modern developed countries sits between 35 to 40, let's say 35 to 45 hours a week. Now, a special country we need to talk about is China. Now, China, they have something interesting. I think that they have by law, they have an hour set. I believe it's 40 hours, but this is not really enforced and upheld. Now, especially in a country like China where they have, as many companies, the economy is big, it's booming, it's growing. A lot of industries from other countries are based in China as far as the workforce. You don't have to look at, you can just go and pick up any type of item in any store, and I'm sure you're going to find made in China somewhere on it. Now, the thing I found interesting about them is they have this system called the 996 working hour system. I encourage everybody to Google all of this. Do your Googles. It's so important. Just don't take my word for it. You should be doing this anyway. But essentially, the 996 working hour system, this is kind of relegated to only specific companies. A lot of IT companies use this. And it essentially stands for a system where people work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days per week. So that is 72 hours, essentially. This is a common practice, a common system within IT companies, and it's an official work schedule. For example, you guys may have heard of Alibaba. Alibaba is a company, Chinese-based company that I guess is similar, I want to say, to like Amazon, essentially. Yeah. So this whole system, it excludes 2 hours of lunch and nap during the noon and 1 hour of supper. My thing is, it seems to work, and these companies, they roll with it. People, are trying to make a coin, so of course there's always going to be someone who's going to do it. But, China is kind of like they about that thug life when it comes to a lot of the things that they do within their country and like internationally. I think we all know this. So, but my thing is like, just say y'all want slaves and go. You know what I mean? So China is a good example of how capitalism and how we live today, our current society, how our current societies work, and how they've been established are very tied to, the work week that we currently practice, that most people have around the world, as well as capitalism. Both of these both of these things are very tied together. So let's talk about that. Let's break that down. So if you look up what capitalism is, the basic ass definition is production for profit in private hands. Now, when this speaks to jobs, everyone has various different jobs working, and that kind of right there in itself explains how we got to be in this situation of a 40-hour work week. Because what you really have to do is look to the point in history where we started having industrialization. Now, if you follow me on Nomad Peeps Pod, or if you follow me on at my personal IG, Modern Day Afronaut, you will have seen the current situation episode series that I run on my IG. We kind of already talked about this, and I gave everybody a little like semi-history, well, it's not, I don't want to say semi-factual, but it was factual. I did my Googles. So that's kind of like the beginning of capitalism. I mean, the definition of capitalism and the beginning of the work week, because you start having booming industries across Europe, across America, Canada, and working conditions were starting to get crazy. And, you got children were working in factories. People are working long hours, 16 hours. They were working for 6 days, apparently, in the beginning of the industrial age. And so, like with anything else, change usually comes from revolution of some sort, of people like standing up and like, actually, nah. we ain't with it, you know? So modern capitalism, which is, when you look at it, you basically have like a large class of workers who meet, who exchange work for a wage, and you have the ultra rich elite class dominating control of the wealth and political power. So this is kind of like still current modern capitalism. And because people were like, nah, hell no, oh no, hell no, we don't want this. So now we have legislation passed to basically give people their human rights. So again, I don't want to sound like I'm rambling, but these are the basics of how we've come to have a 40-day work week. Now, excuse me, the word capitalism and like the word late capitalism is being like slung around everywhere. And the Atlantic, which is a newspaper and also like an online publication, they have a good video on YouTube that I recommend people looking up to check out the meaning of like where this came from. And it's really refers to, and this is via Wikipedia, late capitalism or late stage capitalism is a term first used in print by German economist Werner Sombart around the turn of the 20th century. Since 2016, the term has been used in the United States to refer to perceived absurdities, crises, injustices, and inequality created by modern business development. And in this, I think there's like late capitalism has become very meme-ish. You hear it everywhere and see it everywhere. But at the same time, I definitely think there's some validity in like late capitalism as a concept and also kind of like our reality, because so many people are becoming jaded with this system, because it's like kind of not fair, because it's like we didn't really create the system, but everybody's just kind of like going along with it, following it. And I guess my question I pose is how to break free of it. Is there a way to break free of it, especially if you're someone like myself who doesn't feel as if this way of living is it, it works for you, it doesn't suit you. So how to go about doing this? So I started looking up, like, well, over the past week to prepare for this episode, I've been like reading a lot about capitalism concepts of it. And as far as like, is there a way around it? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of like this is the system that we're born into. And it's about playing the game. And when I say playing the game, it's like, money. We need it. We need it to live. We need it to survive. And it's just the way it is. So on one hand, it's like, I know there's some people like, hey man, just drop off the grid, like this type of thing. I've met people who've done that. But on the other hand, it's like, I like nice things. So there's kind of like, this internal struggle when you're a person that doesn't, get down with the way things are. But then at the same time, I know I have a purpose. And, people want to feel valuable. They want to feel like they're contributing. So, at the same time, having a typical job is not all bad, So, for example, for me, going into next year, I know that I want to start taking things more into my own hands. The idea of freelancing is something that is very, very attractive to me, right? Being able to essentially make my own schedule. I don't have to ask anybody for vacation time. All of these things, it's very attractive to me, and not just me, it's very attractive to many other people, because maybe I mentioned before in the show, like the rise of nomad culture, the rise of the digital nomad it's definitely becoming a major thing. It's becoming a major lifestyle. So much so that I just found out that I believe, is it Estonia? Yes, I believe Estonia is one of the first countries in the world to establish a visa that specifically caters to people who are remote workers, or, on that digital nomad wave. So there's actually a visa you can go and apply for, that allows you to live and work in Estonia. And it's like something, it makes sense because it's like, I don't know when the last time anyone's been talking about visiting Estonia, but it's a very good way to kind of boost toward, because they see the value. There's definitely money in that being an attractive place for nomads. So like this is all, it's all connected. People are wanting more work-life balance. They're wanting more freedom. And it's because this current system that we have is not working for a lot of people. You got a lot of people who are in like BS jobs that are really like, maybe they're not being the most productive, or they feel like they're not really doing anything with themselves. And I would also recommend Hidden Brain. I'm going to be giving y'all tons of recommendations through most of the podcast episodes and future episodes, because I think it's very good for people to kind of like, don't ever take anybody's word. You guys are going to hear me say this more and more because I'm becoming such an advocate for people doing their Googles and researching their own shit, in addition to listening to podcasts. Of course, everything that's mentioned, all the recommendations will be linked in the episode details. But yeah, I would say, sorry if you guys are hearing something right now. It's students. They're so loud. Anyway. Yeah, so Hidden Brain actually has an episode about this, talking about BS jobs, and it's actually a really good listen. I highly recommend it. Okay, so real quick, let's go through some questions. I put some questions for this episode to the current situation episodes that I do on IG stories. And I'm going to read some of the answers. Okay, so wait a second. Oh, shoot. There's so many to scroll through. Wait a second. Okay, so one of my first questions I asked people, wait a second. Where is that? Okay, so for example, many people, I did a poll that was saying, do you feel satisfied with your current job? And 38% of y'all said, yeah, it's okay. 62% said, I want to escape. So, that kind of says it all right there, doesn't it? I think a lot of people feel like this. And it's important to recognize that, because I feel like if people are feeling like that, that means like something has to change. And even like when I was saying there are some jobs implementing a 4-day work week, I feel like even a 4-day work week would be better than a 5-day work week, honestly. Like I really, really feel that, because with at least 3 days, think about it, two days off, Friday night, people go out because it's like, yeah, it's a weekend. Then Saturday is really your only full day. I feel like a 2-day weekend is actually a 1-day weekend, because Saturday is kind of like, that's your full day to yourself. So most of the time people are making plans to go out, do things, get things done, have fun, meet up with people, do personal things. And then Sunday is also a day where you can do that, but it's kind of like this thing lingering over you, realizing like it's over, it's done, it's finished, this is it. It sounds so dark and dramatic, but it's kind of like that though, because I know how I am. Sundays, like I just want to chill. Maybe during the how you have your thing, you do something in the morning, or whatever. But usually, it's like you have 1 day for having fun and 1 day to chill, and then next thing you know, you're back. This is why everybody's always feeling like the weekend goes by so fast, or people are dreading Mondays. Even Monday has become a day of dread for people. Sunday has become a day of dread for people because it's like, damn, I gotta go back. So it's like you're kind of mentally already have half of the weekend written off because you're spending parts of it thinking about, damn, I gotta go back to work. You know, and that, I don't know, to me, that's kind of like, that's an issue. It shouldn't be that way. Every day should feel like a weekend. Every day should be like a holiday. But anyway, that's me and my motivational speaker self talking. But okay, let's see. So the next thing I posted was, what do you think about the concept of money? Somebody said necessary. That was Shannon, actually. Necessary. Someone said better than having to trade veggies or something like that back in the days. Yeah, I guess money is better than having to trade veggies and stuff like that back in the day. But would things be less complicated? I don't know. You'd always, I don't know, would you always have what you needed? I don't know. So yeah, and then I have another person. She initially commented, too long. I need to send a DM for this. So she says here, the concept of money, I feel money is a good thing, but the concept people have is where it gets dangerous. People without money see money as something different than people with money. I'm talking a lot of money, as in, I guess she's saying, this is me editing, as in like wealthy, filthy rich people. People with money know the way people without money feel about it, and they know people without money would do almost anything to get it. So people with money take advantage by always expecting more from working. Excuse me. Ooh. So people with money take advantage by always expecting more from working who are working for that coin. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I think she meant people. Sorry. Oh my God. People with money take advantage by always expecting more from people who are working for that coin. I feel a lot of people are slaves to the dollar. That's so true. And would drag their body down to get more instead of find ways to live off of less. Hello? It's this constant chase to get it, to still live an unfulfilling life, and they never realize no matter how much you chase it, it probably will never feel like you are making enough because of your mindset. Misconception that an increase in income should equal an increase in spending. All in all, I feel your money mindset will determine how you feel about money. And I definitely agree with that. I'm actually making a conscious effort, especially going forward in 2020, to build a better relationship with money. Because I know if you're thinking of things from a place of lack, as in, I don't have, I need, I don't have this right now, like I don't have, it's already kind of like you already kind of have, you're setting things to be negative when it comes to money, because money's energy. You know, money is really like energy. It comes and goes just like energy does. So I think once you start changing your mindset towards it, then things change as far as your outlook about like how you get it, and even it coming to you easier. I really do believe that. So yes, I really think I really love that. And the other question that I asked is, and she also commented in this, I'm going to read her comment because she was so lovely to like really being expressive in her explanation and stuff, because I love having these conversations and connecting with people. But you know, in our society, being a hard worker usually equals being a valuable person. And I'm like, why is that? I mean, we know why that is, because in a capitalist society, when, you know, profit is the ultimate goal, you are going to prioritize, you know, people who are helping you to get to that goal. You're going to prioritize your workers who get to that goal. And of course, you want everybody in the system, living in the system, to believe the same ish, that, you know, being a hard worker means you're a valuable person to society. You know, you're not a menace to society. You're not like a lazy person. You're not a freeloader. Even that term, freeloader. Look at you just sitting over there collecting checks, not doing anything, you welfare queen. Like, you know, this type of thing is just kind of like you're not contributing to the group pot, so to speak. But it's like, real talk, why does anyone have to if they don't want to? You know what I mean? Is that our purpose on this planet, to be productive, to be a productive person? And what does being productive even look like? Being productive for who? If I'm being productive for myself in some way, shape, or form, however that looks like to me, isn't that enough, or it's not? So anyway, I'm just being all philosophical out here right now. But anyway, to get to what she said, being a hard worker equals being a valuable person is a huge misconception that only benefits employers. Exactly. For example, a worker thinking not taking PTO or vacation, PTO, part time, I think that means part time off or whatever, paid time off. Excuse me, paid time off. God, you can see I'm really disconnected. But anyway, for example, a worker thinking not taking PTO or vacation means they are being a good worker or adding value when really they aren't. I used to be that. I used to be that type of person. I ain't taking no sick days out here and be wearing it like a badge of honor. I was definitely one of those people. At the end of the day, sorry, I'm continuing reading what she says. At the end of the day, if the employer is laying off workers to save coin, they could care less who were the workers who were always worked overtime and never took vacation. Facts. Matter of fact, if you always work overtime, you would be one of the first to go since you were costing them more money. They can find someone to do the same job that they would only have to pay for 8 hours. But employers know employees think this way, so they would let that employee do the most with no intentions on rewarding all that extra effort. Thank you so much. I don't want to say I don't know if I should say her IG name, but thank you. If you're listening, you know who you are. Thank you so much for your words. And I totally agree with that as well. There's many people out here thinking like, their company is really about them when it's not, especially again in a capitalist society when profit is, king. That's what matters the most. That's the most important. So when it comes to your workers, like, if they got to make those hard decisions, they're going to do it and they're not going to think twice, And I feel like a lot of people definitely need to take this same mentality too when it comes to yourself, even if whether you're working for yourself or whether you're working in an establishment or company of some sort, because like, at the end of the day, this is really some final thought. This is really some final thoughts-ish. Hold up. Let's take a quick break and we're going to go into the final thoughts because this is kind of like a very short episode because it's just me this week, y'all, talking about work culture. So I just wanted to kind of get into this because this is something that is constantly on my mind, and especially going into 2020, there's some big changes going to be happening for me as well as with my current work situation, which we will be talking about later. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break and come back with the final thoughts. So for the final thoughts, when it comes to work culture, and this is what I was saying before the little break, I really do feel like people need to start looking at themselves as a business because time is a commodity. I'm realizing there's a lot of people who are time poor. Myself, I've experienced this, and when you are working, you're essentially selling your time in exchange for money. This is what working in a capitalist society means. We're charging people for our time. However, I feel like even if you are charging people for your time, that time should be used wisely. And I know it's, idealistic to say this when the reality is a lot of people, they don't have the luxury of moving in their own time. You know what I mean? And there's some people who can do this. And that's a beautiful thing, but it's a very rare thing because everybody can't do it, or they got to do it in their own way. The way that I want to move I can't do that right now. And I need to figure out a way to do that is sustainable to me. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is I feel like people, it's good to like start getting to a point. It will be nice if people can start getting to a point to reflect on, what matters to you most. What do you really want to spend your time on? And because, like I said, when money's energy, it comes and it goes. And I think a lot of people there's a lot of fear involved when it comes to people taking jobs or feeling like they're locked in because, like I said, I need the money, but there's more. And I feel like people need to start looking at themselves as if they're a company. You know what I mean? Is this serving you? Is this making you a profit? And I don't know, for me, time is also a profit. To me, time is profit, not just money. So I know going forward that I want to put myself in the best position to be able to use my time purposefully, intentionally, and in a way that I'm feeling, I'm feeling joy. I'm not feeling miserable. That's the worst feeling. And that's one of my biggest fears, actually. It's always been one of my biggest fears, is like having to get up and go to a job that I hate consistently every single day. And I also think that's why there's a connection to younger generations not staying in companies like our parents did, and our grandparents. They stayed in one company. For my grandmother worked in one place for like 32 years. My grandfather, he did the same. And that shit's over with. The like people, I mean, I know there's some companies that are becoming hip to that, but again, the change always comes within people. So with the people first and foremost, that's where the change comes from. So I think if people start getting to a point where they start demanding more work-life balance, I really do feel like that's the way. So yeah, that's it for this week's episode. We are 3 weeks away for a mid-season break. Going to be taking the last 2 weeks of the year, or I shouldn't say last 2 weeks, basically brings us up to the week of Christmas time. But yeah, just gonna like take a little mid-season break because I'm so excited. There's been 5 episodes. I can't believe it's been 5 episodes already since launching Nomad Peeps. I've gotten so many nice words and compliments from people who have listened to the podcast, especially from friends, as well as from some people that I've never met. And it's fuel for me, y'all. Like I feel like maybe I've said this before, but I love it. And I would love it even more if you are digging it, to please feel free to leave comments on iTunes, on Spotify, just anything that you want to say. Preferably nice things. But just big up the podcast. Seriously. It helps. It all helps. So yeah, we're three episodes away, 3 weeks away, going to be taking a mid-season break and then coming back to you 2020. So many big things happening. So many transition is going to be happening with the podcast because, as I said, this is the Nomad Peeps podcast. Emphasis on the nomad part. So I'm so excited for what 2020 has to bring for myself, for my friends, and just for everyone in general. I feel like just really positive about next year on so many levels. So yeah, you all know what to do. If you're not following, follow on Nomad Peeps Pod. That's on IG at Nomad Peeps Pod. You can follow me, your girl Lisa, your host, at Modern Day Afronaut on IG, as well as follow Nomad Peeps TV. Things are kind of like I'm in the middle of transitioning right now. So, we got some more content coming for over there. But, I'm everywhere, baby. So, yeah, I hope everyone is being happy, being healthy, being well, recovering from Thanksgiving / Family Day / Indigenous Peoples Day meal. And I will see you guys next week. Peace.